We've got Sean Burke here on the line, and we've been waiting a while to get him on the show. Happy to finally have it come to fruition. Sean, how's it going tonight?
Going pretty good. How you guys doing?
Doing good, doing good. So I've been a fan of your work for the last year or so, having with NECW being on. It was over here at the Cove Community Center here in Beverly for a while before you guys started going over to Everett, but I got a chance to talk to you at the last show that you guys did in Everett not too long ago, earlier this month, so that was pretty cool. But just a few basic questions for you. Obviously, the very cliche question that you probably get asked all the time. Where did your interest in professional wrestling start? How did you get into professional wrestling? What kind of motivated you to choose this career path?
I actually just got asked that question a couple of nights ago by somebody.
There you go.
When I was 6 years old, SummerSlam 1990, my grandfather liked Hulk Hogan, so he ordered that for me on pay-per-view. And that was it was Hulk Hogan versus Earthquake and the Ultimate Warrior versus Ravishing Rick Rude in a steel cage for the double main event. And just from that night on, I was hooked. And I used to, I remember my great aunt used to get mad at me. She used to tell me that when I grew up, I needed to be an astronaut or a lawyer or something like that. And I always told her I wanted to be a wrestler. So it all started there.
So what kind of pursued you to choose a career path of being a wrestler? Like, what was that one turning point that said, I want to do this for the rest of my life?
I played football my whole life. Played all the way through college. I played Division II, but I just wasn't good enough to go any further. And I kind of always had this idea in my head that if I ever had a chance to play in the NFL, certainly I would have done that. But at some point, I would come back and do like a Steve McMichael type of deal or a Kevin Green, and get involved in wrestling in some way, shape, or form or another. So when I realized that football just wasn't going to cut it for me, I just didn't have the right skill set to make it there. I said, well, I guess I'm all in, and I'm going to hop into wrestling and see if I have what it takes to do something in that sport, business, whatever you want to call it.
So do you live over here in the Massachusetts area, or do you reside elsewhere in the Northeast?
No, Massachusetts. The western part of Massachusetts.
What school did you train at?
Antonio Thomas, who, if you've been to the NECW shows, I know you've probably seen him wrestle a couple of times. He has a school in Palmer, Mass. And obviously, he comes with a lot of credentials and whatnot. So he is the guy that has done most of my training for me. Obviously, I've got a couple other places here and there and kind of gotten involved with some other trainers. But he's been kind of my main trainer.
So you mentioned before Antonio Thomas, a fellow wrestler from Northeast Championship Wrestling. You guys have a lot of history in that organization, facing off for the NECW World Heavyweight Championship on a number of occasions. But, of course, going back to the topic at hand here, NECW, where did that relationship kind of kick off? Where did you first started to get involved with NECW? I'd probably been wrestling for a year and a half or something like that. And I had, been doing a lot of stuff with some other New England companies, and I think they saw me at a Chaotic Wrestling show, and I just got a call from the booker one day saying, "We'd like you to come in if you're available on whatever date it was," and I went and did that show, and they seemed to like me, and they booked me ever since. So in recent memory, too, from the shows that I've been to in the last year, you were embarking on a very lengthy undefeated streak of never being pinned in singles competition. Did the idea originate from somewhere? Or were you already undefeated and they just kind of saw you winning so many matches and just kind of just stick with it and having you win the championship? Do you know where that idea kind of originated from?
Yeah, I don't know. It just kind of took off. I was undefeated for a while. I broke my ankle about 2.5 years into my career, and I had probably been there for about a year and a half at that point. I broke my ankle and I went away for a while, so there was about 6 months there where I didn't have any matches, so that continued my undefeated streak, so to say. And then finally when I came back, they decided to I came back as a bad guy, and I won that title again for the second time, and it just kind of took off. I don't know, it didn't really. I think it lasted for about 3 years. I think finally Slick Wagner Brown beat me, so. Just kind of took off. It wasn't. I don't think it was anything that anybody specifically had in mind. It just kind of happened that way.
So with that being said, what went through your mind when you first won that World Heavyweight Championship? Because that's something that anyone that aspires to be a pro wrestler is always thinking about. So when you first won that World Heavyweight Championship a number of years ago, what went through your mind when that first happened? It was pretty cool. When I was told that was going to happen, I think that was probably more exciting than when it actually happened. Just kind of getting that notice out of the blue that hey, next month you're gonna win that belt.
Mm-hmm.
It was very cool. I won it in a tournament the first time, so I went through. I think there's only 2 matches I had to go through that night. But I won it in the tournament. I want to say like Blackstone, Mass, or something like that. It was very cool. It was a very fun night. They have it up on their video vault somewhere, so I got to go back and watch it a couple of times. It was very cool.
So, like you just said before, you came back from your injury as a heel. And the year that I've been watching NECW on YouTube and going to all of the shows and whatnot, you were easily one of the best heels they had at their disposal, along with Jeremy Prophet. You also have history within the organization. And you went on to become a great heel for that organization before recently turning babyface. So I got to ask you this question. Do you prefer being a babyface over a heel or vice versa? Like, which one do you have more fun doing?
It's funny. I think I usually say I like being a heel better,
mm-hmm.
and I think not that I don't think I'm really a mean person or anything like that, but I think for whatever reason I think it's a lot easier to be kind of a jerk than it is to be a nice guy, especially in a wrestling context. But recently I've been a babyface a lot of places, and I'm really starting to get used to that. And I'm really starting to feel my flow there. So I don't know if I really know the answer anymore. I'm very comfortable doing both of them at this time.
So in the last couple of years that you've been with NECW, you've had great matches with the likes of Antonio the Promise Thomas, Slick Wagner Brown, like we just said before, Jeremy Prophet just recently. So in all the years that you've been wrestling, who's been your favorite opponent to work with?
That's actually a good one. I think I have probably 3. You mentioned Antonio Thomas, and obviously that's always really cool when I get to wrestle him. Obviously him being my trainer and everything, we get a lot of chemistry, and we just kind of have an idea of what each other are going to do without even really saying anything. But another guy that you're probably familiar with that I love getting in the ring with is Warbeard Hansen from Ring of Honor, who I've had a number of matches with in Chaotic Wrestling. He's certainly one of my favorite guys to get in there with. We have, I think, fantastic chemistry. And another guy is Brian Valonis, who I've also at Chaotic wrestled against a number of times. There are a lot of chemistry with any of those 3 guys, I think, and always put out good matches. I'm always very happy with how those matches turn out. Always excited when I see my name on the card next to any of them.
Is there anyone right now in the pro wrestling scene, anyone on the indies, from NECW, Chaotic Wrestling, anywhere basically, that you have yet to work with, that you have a desire to work with?
Yeah, Tommaso Ciampa. Certainly, the guy that I've crossed paths with a number of times, but I've never actually been in the ring with. I actually was talking to somebody about that the other night, that I'd love to have a chance to get in there with him. Matt Taven, too. I've wrestled Matt Taven once, but it was very, very, very early on in my career.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to get another chance in the ring with him at some point now, where I think I'm a lot better than I was back then. I think we're both at different stages in our career now, so I think those are the 2 guys that, as far as the indie scene is concerned, those are the 2 guys that I think about that I definitely like to get either back in the ring with or in the ring with for the first time.
And in terms of dream matches, who on the wrestling scene, whether they be alive now, passed away, whatever, who would you have liked to work with, say in like the main event of WrestleMania, so to speak? Say, who's your dream opponent?
Oh man, so I could go for about 15 minutes on this one. It's gonna be a number of people.
Go right ahead.
I think Hulk Hogan was always my favorite wrestler growing up. So obviously, just being in the ring with him in any shape or form would be a dream come true. So that honestly would probably be number 1. I think number 2 would be The Undertaker, because who wouldn't want to wrestle The Undertaker, and just what you could possibly learn from that match,
Mm-hmm.
And then number 3, Bruiser Brody. I'm a huge Bruiser Brody fan. I don't think I was ever a fan of real hardcore deathmatch kind of wrestling or anything like that. But the physicality and the things like that Brody, some of the stuff he did with that duel with the Butcher I probably wouldn't want to do some of that stuff. But just the physicality and stuff that everything he did looked real. Looked like he was really out there trying to kill somebody. So that is the kind of guy I'd love to work with, because I just think I love wrestling that looks real. I feel like everything he did looked real.
Kind of an off-topic question, but you mentioned Bruiser Brody, obviously a very underrated talent in my opinion. But with that being said, though, a lot of people have recently called Luke Harper of the Wyatt family the second coming of Bruiser Brody, and no one's ever going to be the second coming of this guy, the next Shawn Michaels. They're going to be the first whoever, like the first Luke Harper. So you mentioned Bruiser Brody and being a big fan of him. I kind of want to get your thoughts on that real quick. Do you see Luke Harper being somewhat of a new Bruiser Brody for the WWE?
Yeah, I think he's probably, there was some things that were very, very unique about Brody, from the way he looked to the way he moved, and you think about the furry boots and the beard and the hair and everything, and I think that's stuff that if you tried to really be kind of a carbon copy of Bruiser Brody, you'd really just be a ripoff. I think Luke Harper is probably as close as you're going to get to that type of character at this point, without blatantly kind of stealing from it. So yeah, I really do. I like watching Luke Harper. Obviously, he's not the Bray Wyatt gets more of the TV time and stuff like that, so I don't have as much of a chance to watch him in the bigger matches or anything like that. But everything I've watched with him, I'm definitely a fan, and I definitely don't change the channel when he comes on. I definitely leave it on and see what's going to happen. So.
And speaking of the WWE, you're a guy that I look at, and it really seems like you fit the mold of what WWE would be looking for. You've got the size, you've got the look, you've got the in-ring skills and mic skills. Have you really pursued to try to land a tryout with them, or do you have any interest in working for the WWE or TNA for that matter, any major wrestling organization, I guess?
Yeah, of course I do, and I have been in front of WWE a couple of times. Nothing major has happened. But obviously, I'm still pursuing that. I mean, I think anybody that gets into the wrestling business, certainly that should be your goal. And I think if they're telling you that that's not their goal, they're probably lying to you,
Yep.
Or they probably became disillusioned somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
But obviously, yes, WWE is goal number one. But there are TNA, certainly. I don't know what the situation is with the company. You're hearing all kinds of things about what's going on there.
Yep.
But other things like Japan, getting an opportunity in New Japan or something like that would absolutely be a dream come true. Even being able to go down to Puerto Rico or something like that would also be very cool. So there are a lot of options out there. Nothing as big as WWE, nothing with the same level of notoriety, but certainly any of those things, Ring of Honor, even any of those things, certainly be something I'm definitely shooting for.
So aside from accomplishing that big goal of working for the WWE at one point, what other goals and aspirations do you currently have? Do you have a goal to win this championship, or I want to work with this guy at one point? Do you have any other current goals or aspirations at the moment?
I think certainly, like I said, New Japan, definitely, that's definitely something. It's just hard to get over there. It's hard to get them to see you. As far as guys that I'd love to work with, actually, I was always a huge Kevin Nash fan, and he does indie shows. He's around time, every now and then. I'd love to have a chance to get in the ring with Kevin Nash. It would be kind of like a 11-year-old kid's kind of dream come true.
That'd actually be pretty awesome. Big Sexy against Sean Burke at any wrestling show. It doesn't even have to be NECW. But like we were talking about before when I was talking to you over Facebook a couple of weeks ago, you said you will not be on the next NECW show this upcoming Saturday night on November 1st. But you do have other stuff kind of going on at the moment. So kind of talk a little bit about what you've got going on, what you aspire to do in the future going forward.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, actually, I've got a kind of a big couple of months coming up, and I'm very excited about a couple of things that I'm doing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, like you mentioned, I won't be on the next NECW show, and I won't be. There's another one in November that I won't be on either. But on November 7th, I will be working with Tommy Dreamer at Top Rope Promotions, which is another New England company. Mm-hmm. I'm really excited about that. It's the first time I've had a chance to get in the ring with him. After that, November 14th, I am on a show for Big Time Wrestling at the Mass Mutual Center in Springfield, which used to be the Springfield Civic Center, which is kind of a big deal for me because that's the building that I always went and watched wrestling at with my grandfather when I was a little kid, and I watched Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior and all my favorites there. Mm-hmm. So it's a show for Big Time Wrestling. It's kind of a big deal. They got Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat on it. The Patriot and Brian Christopher and Scotty Tihadi are also on the show. So those are kind of the headline attractions on there. And somewhere down in the card, you will find me. So I'm very excited about that. That's on November 14th. I also, it's maybe a little known fact at this point, are you guys familiar with Tara?
With Shakara?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely, yep.
So I am a member of the Devastation Corporation in Shikara. I actually double as Flex Rumble Crunch.
Really?
Yes. So we just won the King of Trios tournament at the end of September. We had a couple shows in Massachusetts. We have one show in Massachusetts coming up on November 15th in Haverhill. On November 16th, we are in East Windsor, Connecticut. And then at the beginning of December, we have a show at the old ECW Arena down in Philly. So that's pretty excited about that. That's going to be a really cool building to be able to work in.
So Shikara, talk a little bit about that. How did that opportunity come up? How long have you been competing for Shikara?
Yeah, Sydney Bacabella was our manager, and Max Smashmaster, one of my tag team partners, were both guys that I knew from previous things that I had done. And that Devastation Corporation started out as a tag team, but there was kind of a desire to turn it into a trio, and they needed another big guy. So they knew me. They reached out to me, and it really kind of snowballed from there. I did a lot of stuff kind of on and off. I wasn't necessarily, at first, like I said, it was kind of a tag team gimmick, so they would bring me in when they kind of needed the third guy for this, that, or the other thing. And it really kind of picked up, I want to say, in the last couple of months, right before King of Trios, through King of Trios, where I've been a very steady member of the roster. So pretty excited. I mean, certainly a different type of environment there. I've always been kind of the old school NWA, Magnum TA, and that kind of wrestling is really what I love. Shikara certainly is a completely different animal. Much different, a lot more comedy and things like that there. But it's been a very interesting ride, and it's really kind of helping me, broaden some of the things that I do.
Shikara's, I just want to say, Shikara's a very interesting company. I mean, like you said before, I had no idea that you worked for Shikara at one point. That's really, really cool. I think that's kind of a company that kind of goes under the radar more often than not. That's a company for one to watch out for. I think they have a lot of potential and a lot of great talent like yourself over on their roster. So that's cool they've got that thing going on for you as well, in addition to the matches with Tommy Dreamer and Big Time Wrestling, Over the Top Rope Wrestling as well. So a big month for you coming up. But where can the fans find you on social media, Facebook, Twitter, or any websites where people can find where your upcoming matches are or anything like that?
It's really just Facebook. I'm a really kind of old school person. I have trouble working the computer. So I haven't got myself on the Twitter yet. I'm probably going to have to do that soon. But right now it's just Facebook, just Sean Burke, and you'll find anything I got coming up, whether it's, like you said, whether it's NECW or it's Chaotic Wrestling, which is pretty much kind of my home base at this point, or Chikara, or any of those other companies that I have coming up. I will put that kind of stuff on there and let people know where I'm going to be.
Excellent, man. Thanks again for coming on. We had an awesome interview. Great talking to you. And hopefully we can catch up with you soon, hopefully at one of the upcoming shows here in Massachusetts or one of the NECW shows. And you said you won't be on the shows in November, but one of the shows hopefully in December or so. So thanks again, man, for coming on. We really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it. I had fun.
Thanks, man. Have a good night.